2026 astrology predictions for business owners. That is what we are digging in today. And we are not just covering some surface level stuff. We are going to hear from an astrologer who is also a business owner, who's actively in the space, building offers, launching things, and she even has her own podcast. And that is Kessli Hall. Kessli is so well read into astrology and really knows how to break it down in such practical and adaptable ways. So, you're going to be hearing about how kind of this next era is actually a completely different energy than last year and many years in the past. As she says early on, so many signs are changing and we're really shifting like from era to era, not just year to year. And it's going to impact us in pretty big ways. So different trends like we've seen of, these people that are huge on social media who are kind of gurus and experts, we might see some changes when it comes to their business. Those of us who have a strong mission, we might see some different energies that pop into our business. And there are so many really helpful reminders that are shared throughout this episode. I think you'll also just love Kessli's energy. Maybe it's because she's a Leo and Leo rising, but she just does an excellent job of saying this stuff without getting us lost in the weeds of stars and planets and transits and movements and all that jazz. So I'm so excited to welcome Kessli to the show. Let's get into it. Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I'm Samantha Fackler, your host, business mentor, brand strategist, and someone who believes that building a business is one of the most spiritual journeys you can take. I am here to help you grow your business through proven strategies and aligned practices, so ultimately you can make more money while being in a state of ease. If you are like me, then you probably do things like check astrology before you plan a launch, or check in energetically if something is feeling right or wrong. And you're constantly wanting to develop your intuition muscle that helps you bring a little magic into your everyday. And if that is you, I invite you to join my community headquarters. It's free and we have a large selection of different offerings. We also have lots of awesome guest workshops on everything from PR to SEO for a limited time. You can get access to everything in headquarters in the link in the show notes. Kessli, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we have very, very good conversation and topics to riff on today.
Oh, yeah. We are releasing this right at the turn of the year, jumping into 2026. And really today we're going to talk about, what can we expect from this new year? What are your predictions as an astrologer and business consultant and someone who is actively building your business online? I feel like you have such a good point of view to share on this too, because you're not just an astrologer, you're also in the thick of the wild, wild west. So
Yes.
I'd love to just go straight into it. When it comes to 2026, what can we expect?
Yes. So the main thing about 2026 is all of the outer planets are shifting into signs, different signs. And what is so significant about this is the past many, many years, all of these outer planets have been in water and earth signs, and we're shifting all into fire and air signs. So we're going from this feminine energy to this masculine energy, or this yin energy to this yang energy, if you will. And so the major difference is a lot of what we've been experiencing collectively has been more spiritual, if you will. It's been more flowy and, slower paced in some senses. And I'll kind of get into actual specifics so you can imagine what this looks like. But we are definitely moving into more of a fast pace era. And I think that a little bit scares some people where they're like, oh, I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You get to dictate the pace. This is, again, it's just the collective energies that we're all going to feel and experience. And just to start off with the big one, this is one that I feel like everyone and their mother's been talking about since forever, but we have to mention him, which is Pluto in Aquarius. So it stabilized in Aquarius in 2025. And so we're at the very, very beginning of this 20-year transit. And Pluto rules so much of the external structures. It has so much to do with rebirth and death and transformation and these different archetypes of the sort. And so we've moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. And my biggest prediction for our online space is that we are moving from this like, I am the guru, I am the hierarchy, I have like, one, the coaches, whatever. And it is moving more into this horizontal network, if you will, where the question now becomes, how can everybody come to the top? How can everybody also win? And what is required of that? And so we're just going to see a very different outline of what the actual structures look like and who we position as leaders. I think that those with very strong missions, those with very strong movements, are going to be the ones that really excel during this time. And again, this is a very long transit, but it is the one that sets kind of the playing field for everything else. So that is the first big one. And then there are 4 more that are also taking place. But wondering if you have already noticed potential shifts or if you've even explored Pluto and Aquarius much this year as well.
Have. And I like that you bring it up. It's one of those planets that we don't talk about a lot. Usually we're like, oh, we're in, Gemini season, or there's a new moon and whatever. And I think Pluto is this big one in the background that you're right. It does kind of set a larger stage. I was very aware of the change of Pluto going into Aquarius because before it was in Capricorn and I'm a Capricorn sun, typically when Pluto is in your sun, it's difficult. It can be difficult. There are some
Mhm.
big changes and transitions that can happen in your life. And I very much saw that. But now that it's in Aquarius, something that I've been thinking about too is just these innovative structures. I feel like Aquarius is very much about innovation, decentralization, and I think we're seeing that in many different aspects. I think we're seeing that in finance with stable coins and cryptocurrency. I think we're seeing it with technology. So it's really fascinating from that angle. And then I think the business space is definitely due for a shakeup. And I
Yes.
keep hearing narratives about, people with huge platforms, sometimes they're amazing. Sometimes there's not as much value behind it. So I think we're going to start to see that a little bit more.
Yeah. And as you know, too, it is the year of the snake. And so we are seeing a lot of masks slip and come off. And I feel that I've seen a lot of call outs happen this year, too, on like, actually, this isn't right. Actually, we shouldn't be investing in all of these and having this type of pressure and very performative marketing just to be brought into something that doesn't act on its promise. We're going to see a mass exit of things like that because it's going to be like a collective push. And I think too, we're entering more into a purpose driven over profit driven. And that doesn't mean like, we're all going to be like, oh, don't care about money. I'm just in it for whatever. But truly, it is going to be mission based, purpose based, strong vision based first. And that is how you are going to build such strong communities is, do you have a movement? Do you have something that you can really get behind? Do you have something that is actually what you believe in and not just what sounds good, not what, especially what other people are doing either? This is something we will kind of talk more about as well. But yeah, I already said this, but truly the biggest question that I feel like it's presenting is, how do we create something where nobody's left at the bottom? How do we create something where we get to help those who are willing to really put in the reps and who are willing to be leaders rise and where everyone really benefits? And so I am excited about this on all sorts of levels, even outside of the online space. I feel like it's just really, it's going to do a big cleanup in ways that we need to happen for us to benefit as a world and as a society. But our online space too, it definitely needs that. And you started to bring up like the financial structures as well, like, other things shifting. And I actually think that's been so relevant with Uranus being in Taurus since 2018. And Uranus is now going to be in Gemini for the next 8 years. So we saw a little glimpse of it this summer. and it just regressed back into Taurus for its very last final transit. It's at about 29-ish degrees. And so we're seeing like the final lessons of that transit. But so much of what Taurus rules is our resources, our money systems, and all sorts of things like that. And clearly, especially since 2018, there's been such a boom in the online space and a boom in how we can now make money and resource ourselves and create stability. And so Uranus really revolutionized what that can look like. And it is changing a lot of those systems. It's changing, just how we perceive wealth, how we perceive what actually materials like really matter to us. What do we really want to be successful for too? And I just think that on a bigger level as well, because again, these are affecting like on a world scale too, where I think a lot of people realized that they don't want just the traditional things that they were always supposed to want. A lot of people realize, actually, I don't want a house. I want to be able to travel the world. Actually, I don't really want to prioritize like having all of these things. I want something different for myself. And so I think that revolutionized a lot. And with Gemini, I think that this is going to be a transit that majorly impacts our space because Gemini rules language and communication. It's information systems. It is education, it's media, it's technology, it is our marketing, it's networks, it is perception, it's stories, it's narrative. And so this disruption is jumping from the material world into like the mental world, if you will. So it's like, AI is obviously going to play one of the biggest roles in this. It already has. We've already seen that acceleration with Pluto in Aquarius. But with Gemini and Uranus, we're going to see a lot of very big breakthroughs in innovative ways. We are going to be able to lean into our humanity and our soft skill sets more than we ever have. And being hired and creating community for our perspective, for our lived experience, for our stories, and less for like, how much can we do? How much can we produce? How much can we, you know, materialize, if you will, because AI will be able to do so much of that heavy lifting. And of course, there's lots of scary things that can happen with AI too, but on a very optimistic side, it's like there's a lot available to us, and for us to have even more soulful aligned businesses where like we really feel we're doing what we love in that business because we can outsource so much that is what we don't love.
I think there are a couple of threads here I want to actually bring together from what you just said. One was the mission being so important. And I think that is something for all our listeners to remember and keep really close, because if you think about the profit and the wealth side that I think a lot of people have been focused on the last few years, I mean, we will always, as you said, like care about profit. That's what makes our businesses run. But at a certain point, profit doesn't mean as much to us. Once we get to that state where we have enough, or we have the right overflow, or we're investing in the right things, the mission is what comes back as being central. And I think if you can remember that and focus on that, I believe the profit will come. And then this other piece of AI, something that I've been thinking a lot about too, is that AI is taking so much of this logistical part of our brain away. I think it actually makes a lot of room for creativity. And I love that you brought up this connection and humanity piece in this next evolution. Are there any other signs that also point to that with all these outer planets shifting?
Yeah, there's three more major players in this that are playing such a big role, especially in the direct upcoming years. And so the other really big long-term transit, which we'll talk about the two short-term, but the big long-term one is Neptune moving from Pisces and into Aries. And so Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. And what we have seen on like a business level since then is the massive boom in the personal brand, in the online brand, in just how we perceive business as a whole. there has also been a lot of boundaries that have been blurred. It's like where everything became content, there stopped being any sort of line between your personal life and what should be monetized. And also, like, we can see like these big corporations that, they pretend to be like Gen Z interns in the comments of things, and it's just become like truly it's merged so much. And on another note, we've seen such a uptick in the spiritual side of things and, you know, people wanting more ease or flow or whatever it may be. But on the downside of it, we've seen a lot of escapism. We've seen a lot of not taking ownership and blaming and just disillusionment. And there was just a lot that Neptune and Pisces brought us a lot of amazing things. It brought us so much awareness. I think that it made a lot of people, again, connect deeper with their intuition and their spiritual selves. And it brought almost like a empathetic side to things again. But of course, there's negatives to every single transit. And we did see, like I said, just a lot of escapism, a lot of just blurred boundaries, blurred lines, where a lot of people got so burned out and just kind of so like, do I have to showcase my whole life to make money? Does every interest I have to be monetized? Right. And that's just speaking on our space specifically. But moving into Aries is going to be a completely different type of energy, because Neptune is so much about, it's like our collective, it's like the collective spiritual or the collective illusions that we're all kind of experiencing together. It's such a strange planet to describe. And I feel like me saying that describes exactly what it's here to do. But we are kind of moving. So Pisces is dreams, Aries is action. So this is the time where it's like we cannot sit here and dream and vision and manifest and just be like, I really hope my business makes $1 million this year if I just like wish it hard enough. It is very much so now taking that vision and taking those dreams and making really bold moves. And so this shift too from Pisces to Aries is so different, because Pisces is the last of the zodiac. It is the 12th sign and it's the final sign. And so it's very much so represents to like the collective. Like we are all one. We all, we're all part of like something bigger and greater than us. And then Aries is like a newborn energy. So think of like Pisces as like the old person in their hundreds and, they're at their like last little limb. Whereas Aries is the newborn energy. It's like coming into this world, fighting, ready. It's very ambitious, sometimes very naive kind of energy too. But Aries is also all about individuality. It's like, who am I? And I think that we're going to see a lot of people begin to discover who they actually are too, because I think the last few years, a lot of people have just kind of morphed into a brand that they thought they had to be, that they thought would be what stands out. And the authenticity, quote unquote, is like something that's become such a buzzword when people were performing it. And now it's going to truly be who is actually authentic. And so I just feel like this is so much of like your vision demands action, and these divine missions, if you will, are going to require you to fight for them and to stand up for them and to have a lot of courage. This reminds me of the next one.
I see the brand thing all the time because I run a branding course a couple times a year. And usually people come in being like, I really think my brand has like an old money aesthetic, or it's really clean and simple. And then we dig under the hood and help them actually understand their businesses and who they are as a business owner. We connect the dots, and they often leave with like a truly unique look and feel and sound and everything. And that's really what a brand should be. That is what authenticity is. But unfortunately, I feel like the word brand, especially in the online space, has taken on this different meaning of just like a surface level look and feel. So I'm personally excited about that because I think there's so much room for people to get more creative, to really start to create some like awesome looking companies and businesses and missions.
But I also have a very similar take and articulation to branding because it's so much deeper. Branding goes so beyond the verbal and visual identity. It's so much deeper than that. The next big transit that is in direct alignment with this is Saturn and Aries. And Saturn rules so much of like the roles that we are living within. It's the kind of unconscious roles and standards that we have collectively kind of set for ourselves. And so with Aries, we're bringing back this pioneering initiative, autonomy, direct type of energy. And it is going to reward those who are willing to be bold in their authenticity, who have courage in doing something different, who have courage in starting something, even if it's never done before or scary, saying the things that they really want to say, not hiding behind what will make me accepted, what will make people like me, what will be the prettiest way I can possibly make my brand look, or like whatever it may be. It's very fiery, action-oriented energy. And so Saturn is extremely uncomfortable in Aries because Saturn's such a slow-moving planet that wants structure and it wants containment. And Aries is the exact opposite. It's very fast energy. So there's going to be a little bit of this push and pull of like impulsivity and action. And one of the lessons that I think is going to be taught here is who can genuinely put in the reps long enough, who can put in the work long enough, who can hold that vision long enough to then see the reward to the end. Because we become such a society where we want instant reward for everything, especially this online space, especially because we've seen so many people blow up so quickly and make $1 million in only 2 years of being in their business, 100K month. They're for like, we've seen things that are just not normal in the real world. And I think that we're kind of going to be entering a period where the reward might take a bit longer to get, but who is willing to stick it out is going to be rewarded with it. And so we're really redefining leadership with this transit too. The leaders are going to stand out tremendously. And by leadership, I do not mean who is louder, who has the biggest opinions, who has the biggest following, right? That's not leadership. To me, leadership is who is the most embodied, who is so authentic in actually their mission, in their voice, in their perspective, in their angle, in their work, that they become just somebody worth following. And so, yeah, we're going to see a major collapse of weak leadership at the top. Like that's one of my biggest predictions is we're going to see a downfall of a lot of the big gurus, if you will.
Perseverance is one of the most beautiful, but also most difficult things in business. When we do have that mission, when we're fired up, when we are taking the action day after day, and you're not quite seeing the breakthrough, it can be really disheartening. And I've seen this in my own business many times. I've seen this with clients. And what I often say is keep going. Look at your strategy, look at what you're doing so you know that you're putting your time and effort in the right areas. But if you really are and it feels really rooted and right, that payoff will happen eventually,
Mm-hmm.
right? As long as you don't quit. And so I think that's a wonderful message to remember too with the perseverance side of this, Aries being in Saturn. How can you stay committed? How can you stay even connected to certain people so that you keep it up when you have moments where you want to just quit?
Yes. And I said this on my story the other day with this transit. Being seen as trying is going to be cool again. We have like somehow adapted this as a culture where it's cool to look like you made success so effortless. Like all I did was tap into this framework. All I did was close my eyes every morning for 10 minutes and it just came to me, or like whatever it may be. And there's been so much dishonesty behind that of trying to look very effortless. And I feel with this one, it's going to be being seen trying and being seen like possibly falling on your face over and over again is going to be seen as cool. It's like, wow, they're actually out here doing it. They're really putting in the reps. And on the note that you said about we always want to make sure that we have the strategy, we want to have a direction, but this is not the time to be obsessive with planning or theorizing or hoping it's going to be a perfect finished product. This is the time to start building, to take the quote unquote messy action, if you will, launch imperfect versions, prove your model through doing, not through strategizing, not through, again, like, I just hope that this is going to be perfect. And once it's perfect, then I'll put it out there. It is very much so like, who is willing to actually build the thing and put in the reps? And also, I think that there's going to be discipline in initiative. So, like, starting before you are ready and courage with structure. So, that's the big thing here. It's like Saturn wants structure 100%, but it wants you to have the courage. And I'll give an example for me. So, right now, I am launching my body of work called Architected. And this has been 3 years in the making because for the last 3 years, I put in the reps with so many one-on-one clients to finally have something that's so authentically mine, that is through lived experience, that is just like everything that I've ever really, really, truly learned and did myself is now being put into something where as many people as possible can experience it. And this year, it has been so hard mentally to create this because it feels so big. And I also recognize that the reason why I was having resistance is because it feels like something that could be judged. And for some reason, I feel like it's almost like a reflection of me if it's possibly judged. Like, let's say somebody comes in and they don't like it. I almost feel like, oh my gosh, they don't like my way of thinking. They don't like my way of how I see business, how I see things. Like, I'm being rejected, right? And so I've had to really detach from that. And so right now, I am literally building something with courage. Like, I have to sometimes self-coach my way through certain modules of like, you can do this. This is, people are going to absolutely love this. And it's not your job if there's those one-off possible people are like, yeah, it wasn't really for me. It's like, that's perfectly okay. And so that's just one example, right? In case like you could see this in your business in some places. And for some of you, that might be visibility. For some of you, it might be vulnerability. For some, it might be getting rid of the offers that you really know that you need to get rid of. I got rid of my entire one-on-one offer suite for 2026, and it's scary because a huge amount of my income has come from that. And it's extremely dependable. It's extremely proven, right? And I'm moving into all of one-to-many offers. And I'm like, again, it's like the courage. Like, I got the structure, I have the plan, but I have to have courage and a lot of self-trust. I think that's another big one. And on the last note, I'll say there with Saturn in Aries is like reestablishing boundaries, because with Saturn being in Pisces for the past 3 years, Pisces does not have boundaries. It's the opposite of boundaries. It is boundless, if you will, wants to blur those lines a lot. And so I think we are reestablishing boundaries, especially with ourselves. What will we do versus won't we do? Or where do we start and stop on something? Saying no to really protect our focus. And I think that people are going to get the wrong idea of, because we have all this fire and air energy, which is, again, it's more fast paced, it's more masculine, to mistake this going back into hustle culture or, I don't know, bro marketing or like whatever it may be. But what can you be so committed and disciplined to and be willing to take the courageous action towards every single day? And that doesn't have to look like working 10 hours a day or anything like that whatsoever, right? Everybody has their own version of hard. Everybody has their own version of what is worth working towards, what is worth being devoted to. And so I think we're going to see a lot of rewards from that too as well.
I think going back to the courage, the self trust, I mean, even boundaries, all three of those are so connected. And we have absolutely been in a place with lower boundaries, with just, even like you were saying earlier, just people sharing and monetizing their entire lives and details of everything. But I think something that I keep coming back to, both for myself and this shows up in client work too, is how can you create something truly original that's from you, like your experience, your expertise? Because I think that's what the world needs. Like, they don't need an idea that was brainstormed on ChatGPT. They need you to step away, go into nature, be in your favorite little reading nook, whatever it is, and get inspired and really tap into something that's different. And I think I was chatting with Kaylee Meyer, who's a copywriter, about this too. You know, a lot of times when people enter the online space, they have expertise from elsewhere. They've had a career, they've done something else. Maybe they've even had a business, but they're starting to build online. You see people who are building online and who have had a large platform. So oftentimes they take inspiration from the formats of that, like building other communities or masterminds, whatever it is, but that doesn't mean it's right for you. And I encourage people to look at what are new formats? Like, what can you create that's really genuine and unique?
Mm.
But that requires courage, that requires self trust, and that definitely requires boundaries because not everyone's going to like it. And you have to trust yourself to go forward with it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's so much of the basis of the work that I do, because integrating astrology and human design into the structure of your business and also into your own leadership. So many people, they don't realize how much work goes into the deconditioning of, I can do this in a way that is correct for me. I can do this in a way that I'm not seeing other people do and still be successful. Like, I truly believe the first step to success is finally accepting the ways that just simply feel so wrong for you are never going to be the way. You can achieve your version of a successful life and business through a way that is very, very different. And I mean, this has been proven so many times in every version of history that we could ever think of, in business and art and performance. The ones who are willing to go do something that was different, that was outside of the box, are the ones that ended up the most successful. The ones where people did probably ridicule at first, but then went, wait, how did you do that after they've done it? And, I have very much so my own experience with exactly that. And so I guess this like also leads to the next transit very beautifully, which is Jupiter will be moving into Leo. So Jupiter's been in Cancer since June of this year, and it will be in Cancer until June of next year. And so while it's been in Cancer, Cancer is cardinal water. So it is emotional, it is very protective, it is very rooted in belonging to something. And so there's been this focus on creating some sort of safety and nourishment in some part of your business, in some part of your life. And there's been a huge emphasis on nurturing and caring and emotional needs. And that could look like doing that for your community. It could look like for certain parts of your business. It could look like your inner world. But there's been something that has really wanted attention in that way. And it's also so much about protectiveness and boundaries and, really, really tightening that area, because Cancer can slip into being too overgiving, into overdoing its boundaries and it cares too much to the point where it's lost itself a little bit. And so something that we're seeing too with this is like Cancer's so much about security in really every single format as well. And so for this phase that we're currently and actively in and will be for the next 6 months, it's whatever house that you have in your chart in Cancer is where this is really being activated. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion. And expansion, it always sounds like a good thing, but if what is there is not so great, it's also going to expand what is not so great, right? So it's like bringing conscious awareness. Let's say it's like your business infrastructure, for example. Let's say like it's very chaotic, it's all over the place, you don't feel safe within your business. Jupiter's going to expand that. It's going to show you like how unsafe you really are, how unsafe, where the gaps are. And it's going to ask you like, all right, let's tighten this up. If you want to feel safe and nourished by your business, then you got to put in the reps to fix that infrastructure, right? And on the flip side of that, if you do feel like, I feel secure, I feel nurtured here, right? It is really going to expand that in a very abundant, rewarding way. And I'm currently experiencing this because Cancer is in my 10th house of career and business and brand and long-term goals and legacy. And I also have a Cancer stellium with personal planets. A stellium is when you have 3 or more planets. So I have my MC there, I have my Mars and my Venus, and I have experienced since June very explosive growth. I've experienced like a lot of recognition. I have been invited onto big platforms and speaking events, and I can just feel my business, like my vision feels so clear and it's really moving forward. But it's because prior to that, I felt very locked in on what do I represent? What is my brand? What is the vision I'm moving toward? And I've been greatly rewarded with that transit, right? So when it shifts into Leo, it is going from nourishing something very deeply, feeling safe in something, feeling grounded in something. And I think it's also like a checkpoint of, is this something I actually want? Like, does my business, my brand, my marketing, my clients, whoever, do they actually nourish the bigger vision of what I want? Do I feel true in that? And then when it shifts to Leo,
Before we get into Leo, what you're sharing here is so important with reflecting on the Cancer part of this before it goes into Leo, because, like you said, Jupiter shifted into Cancer this June. I feel like so many things that you said resonated so deeply with what I've been seeing. I feel like I've had this message of like, follow what feels light in your business, but let go or change whatever feels heavy. And I think that has been the lesson that of this sign. That's what I'm getting from what you're sharing. It's funny because I started my community in June, and it's been this kind of nourishing space that I really love for women to connect, but it's also been slow growing. And then I've also seen this with certain challenges with team members who might be pushing boundaries a bit. And it's like, okay, well, there's clearly some sort of lesson here. And I need to dig in and understand what's happening before it seems like this shifts into Leo.
and with you being a Cancer rising, because I shared with you how I've been attracting Cancer risings like crazy in the past several months. And the biggest thing I've noticed with you guys is because it's transiting your first house of self and of identity. And so your self concept is being expanded tremendously right now. And it's like pushing you to, who do you need to become in order for this new stage of life, essentially? And it's funny that you say like you are growing this community of women because Cancer does rule women. It is the mother archetype. It has so much to do with just these women-based nurturing type of communities. But I also always want people to remember that while Cancer sometimes gets this like, I don't know, in traditional astrology, you'll be like, oh, it's just a crybaby. It's so emotional. It's so whatever. Cancer is a cardinal sign, aka it is one of the CEOs of the zodiac. Cancer has a very fiery energy to it. If you've ever crossed, let's say, like an animal that has babies with it, it's going to be extremely aggressive and protective over that thing. That is what Cancer energy actually is. It's not this like, just so soft, so crybabyish, right? It is the crab as well, is the archetype, which is hard shell, right? It's got claws, and it is certainly not afraid to like act on that. And some of the best CEOs in business are Cancer suns or have very strong Cancer placements. And this is because they both have such an emotional intelligence to them and to their leadership. They also are very, they're not afraid to take action, to take initiative, and to say like, hey, these things need to change. And so yeah, it's very much so this energy of what is going to be fulfilling to me, what is going to like really, really nourish me. And it leads so beautifully into moving into Leo because something that I fully believe is like when you feel safe and secure, whether that's in your business operations, whether it's in your client experience, within yourself, within your identity, whatever it may be, you can feel like you can be much bigger in your self expression, which comes out in your marketing, which comes out in your brand, which comes out in your perspective, right? One of my biggest takes is when your business infrastructure, like right now, I'm really elevating my client experience in the back end of things since I'm going to be scaling quite a bit next year, is when I feel so secure in my systems and the structure of my business, I can show up so much bigger in my marketing because I'm just like, anybody who comes in is going to get the best possible experience. Like they're taken care of. Like the energetic weight is just so different. And I know that so much of my energy next year is going to be in the marketing formats. And so Leo is it's fixed fire. So Leo wants to have a purpose. Leo cares so much about its expression, its creativity, its identity. It's a very driven leadership type of sign. And so there's going to be this kind of collective appetite for boldness and visibility and personal branding and even like creative risk taking, and those who really embody and emanate purpose. Like those who feel like I have a strong purpose. And this is not about people being louder than one another or like who can be the biggest, craziest brand or anything like that. But it's like it really is like that personality and that purpose coming through and not just expertise, because we are back to Uranus and Gemini for a second. Information is more accessible than it's ever been. People can get information from anywhere at the snap of their fingers. And people now want to be invested in the founder, in what is the purpose of this? What is the perspective here? It might be like a fun, because Jupiter's only a year-long transit, but in Leo, it just might bring back people's actual creativity again, people's actual like, let me have fun with this. Let me like really showcase myself. And one of the core messages of my entire reason why I do what I do is I truly believe that when you are so embodied in who you are and how you do things and your purpose, your movement, your way of creating, serving, all of the things, you give everyone else permission around you to do the same. And it creates like a ripple effect where everyone starts to realize, wow, I have that as well. This is one of the main things that I talk about in my mastermind. Everybody is so drastically different. Everyone has different experience. They all have different human design archetypes and astrology and the whole nine yards. What I want them to learn is that they are equally so gifted as the person next to them. They get to see how when I coach and consult somebody so differently than them because of how they are designed, and they get to be like, wow, this person's really, really amazing, but so am I. And it's like this energy of I can appreciate this person's gifts and how incredible they are and also deeply appreciate mine. And it just creates what I believe is a ripple effect. And it's like building leaders are so strong in their identity.
And I think going back to that safety piece for a moment too, that is so important. And seeing, okay, where do you not feel safe in your business? Is it your systems? Is it your team? Is it your marketing? Is it your brand? Is it your offers, your pricing, right? There's so many different things in the constellation of our business that this is a really good time to be looking at those so that you can charge forward and whatever, whatever's the right path for you. We talked about this before we hit record, which is that we tend to attract certain people at different times. You were saying you're attracting a lot of Cancer risings, Aquarius risings. I tend to attract in general like Cancers, Pisces, different water signs. It just seems like I remember my bridal party, almost everyone was a Cancer sun, which is so funny. Is there somewhere in your chart that you can see kind of who you'll attract, or is it more based on whatever is happening with that transit?
So I think that it's this one is kind of subjective. So you certainly can see in your chart who you will naturally attract, or even like the archetype of the person. So your seventh house has a lot to do with the mirrors in your life. And I would say that sometimes your first house and your third house tend to also be similar archetypes because your first house is your identity. So sometimes attracting people similar to you, right? And so, like you said, you're a Cancer rising and you attract Cancer suns, like that would be a perfect example. Or third house is so much about how we communicate, and it is our like direct networks of people that we are in contact with and see more on a daily basis or consistent basis. And so that can kind of be another archetype. But something that I notice for me is I attract different archetypes in different seasons. And I think that it's always teaching me something. So like with the Cancer risings and the Aquarius risings, why I'm attracting so many of them is because, Jupiter is expanding your guys' first house right now. And then Pluto is like giving the Aquarius risings an entire identity, death, and reckoning right now. And so many people see my brand as like, I want to step into my true identity. And I have this like undercurrent to my brand where so many people come to me when they feel like their identity is completely shifting. It's
Mm.
not even like a spoken thing of my brand, but it's who I
The
attract
energy.
over and over and over, where it's like, all right, I'm going through a new identity shift or a identity death or rebirth, and I need direction. I need help on this. And so that's why I know I'm attracting those two, right? And it's just funny to kind of look back on and to recognize like what it is that I do and what I really help with, and then what are people going through during certain transits and how I will attract the same placement over and over. But it's
Wow.
very, yeah, it's very, very cool to like look at the patterns afterward and be like, oh, that's why that kept happening. Sometimes I can't figure it out for a while until I'm like, okay, now we're on the 20th person. I think I finally get it.
Nice. That's what I find so fascinating about astrology and human design too, is just noticing patterns. Like notice when something is happening over and over, or you get the same feeling over and over because there's clearly a lesson that's trying to come through. And I think as we round out our conversation today, we've talked about so many amazing things from like staying really close to your mission. A lot of signs are changing. We're moving into this, era that's more fire and air, which is completely different from earth and water that we've been in. Moving from this year of the snake where masks have kind of fallen off. A lot of us have shed some skin, stepping into new eras, moving into an era where leadership and authenticity are going to be so, so important. Any other predictions or things that you want to share on 2026?
So I will also say entering into a 1 year and having two placements move into Aries, very early degree of Aries as well, is such a newness type of energy. It's very initiating. It's this new year, new me, like actually this time, like you can really claim that in January if you really want to. But it's like a fresh start. It is a opportunity to reinvent yourself. It's an opportunity to take ownership over your life and to be very courageous with what you want to go after, because air and fire also sextile with one another in astrology, which essentially means they're talking to one another like they're friends. And so they're going to be really working off one another. And we also have three Mercury retrogrades that each last 3 weeks. And all of the Mercury retrogrades in 2026 will be in water signs. Those are great periods to retreat and go inward and reconnect with your intuition, emotional well being, and to just pause and be like, okay, is the actions I'm taking, the direction I'm going, is that actually correct? Let me give myself a break. Let me get rid of the noise so I can actually hear myself. I can hear what I should be doing. Is, just a reset period, because I fully and completely believe in taking rest periods as part of your business strategy. Like it's
Mhm.
100% embedded in everything I do. I'm like, you have to do it. We're not workhorses.
Rest is so important. And I know I'm about to go into a rest period of at least a couple weeks. And I think it's another thing to remind people is often when they hear about rest, they're like, well, how can I keep my marketing going and not lose momentum and traction? And as someone with a marketing background, I'm here to say, like, it's okay to break the rules. It's okay to take a beat, like algorithms, sometimes it can actually refresh things if you come back.
Mhm.
But like your energy is so important. That's actually going to steer the business. And that's way more important than whether the algorithm favors you for a week or two.
Nothing in nature works that way. So why do we think that we get to work that way? Nature is so cyclical. It truly every year everything has to die or go to rest or retreat so that it can come back significantly stronger and better. And the fact that we often don't give ourselves the same grace to do in our business, I just think we have to really rewrite that. So yeah, take breaks, intentional breaks, schedule them all throughout the year. And it doesn't have to be a total, complete time off if you don't want to. Like for me, during my rest season, sometimes I just go down to like a 3-day work week. Sometimes it's just my focus shifts. entirely, where I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be focusing on building out this offer or just supporting clients right now. And that's it. I have a whole episode on my 12th house season, but that's one of the times of the year where I always really take a big step back. But because I make that intentional time to step back, I get so many positive benefits from it and so many like downloads and just clarity on this next season of my business and life. Where if I didn't do that, I can't imagine I'd probably be spinning my wheels in certain ways or just holding on to something so much longer than I needed to.
Yeah, sometimes it's about the quality of your life, quality of your business as a business owner. So I love that. Kessli, this has been so fun and so enlightening on what's to come for 2026. I think you've done an excellent job of breaking down some of the big changes that are coming and how we can adapt to those. Where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Kessli.Hall. I have a podcast as well. It's called Business in Retrograde, but those are like my two primary platforms.
And speaking of that, I do ask all my guests to close out the episode, what is one confession that you'd like to share with our audience? It can be across personal life, professional life, anything.
Oh, okay. I'm like super, super dyslexic. And I often switch my words around. I can never say acronyms correctly for the life of me. I have no idea what any acronym stands for ever. I'll flip things around. And sometimes when I talk in my content, or if you pay attention to how many errors I have in spelling and whatnot, this is exactly why. And for so long, I hid this. And then I finally started owning it. I'm like, guys, I did go to school. I just am extremely dyslexic. So that's mine.
There's that authenticity we need. Thank you, Kessli.
Of
Oh,
course.
just really appreciate you here, everything that you shared. We'll drop your links in the show notes for people to find you and follow you.
Thanks so much. It was so nice to talk to you.
I hope you enjoyed today's show with Kessli Hall. I am your host, Samantha Fackler. You can find me on Instagram at samantha.fackler. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating or review. They go such a long way in helping us grow the show. And with that, we will see you next time.